I'm making this video because, well, I need a reality check, so please help me out. I've watched a lot of interviews with professional Atmos mixers, and I see many of them panning and routing sounds within object beds instead of using Atmos objects to pan. I'm just trying to understand if there's a problem with that when it comes to binaural rendering. Obviously, we rely on the phantom center effect when using speakers and normal headphones, but many consumers listen to Atmos music over binaural headphones. My question is, really, how well does phantom imaging translate to binaural rendering? I have some examples to play for you, but before I do, please let me explain my concern. How does the binaural renderer work? Basically, it emulates the way we humans discern where sounds are coming from in real life. When we hear a sound, our brains compare the subtle differences that we hear in each ear, including loudness, timing, and tone shaping, these psychoacoustic effects. A sound up there travels straight to this ear, but to reach my other ear, it has to go over and around my head, which changes the sound. The binaural rendering algorithm models these acoustic effects for each sound, not once, but twice, once for each ear. And every other object has to be rendered twice as well, because they're all at different positions and would have different psychoacoustic effects. What we finally hear in the headphones is the sum of all the processing for all the objects for both ears. For more on this, I recommend the ebook Mixing in Dolby Atmos, How It Works by Edgar Rothermich, which explains this and much more. So with Atmos objects, the binaural renderer knows where the object is and renders the left and right signals accordingly. But with a stereo object bed, the left and right endpoints are mapped to two objects that are each panned to one side. An instrument that you want at phantom center on speakers would sound like it's coming from two sides in binaural, wouldn't it? That's my concern. I don't see how that doesn't produce some kind of distortion. But I must be wrong, because everybody's doing it, right? Anyway, I've been wanting to test this for a while, but I couldn't until I got Nuendo 12, which includes Dolby's binaural renderer in the Dolby Atmos plugin. This is a Nuendo project that I created just so that I could experiment. The sound I'm using as the input is a recording of a click track. And I have three ways that I can render that signal. One is as an object, and I'll talk about the other two later on. So I'm going to play the track, and you can hear it over your headphones. It's set right now to binaural, so it's a binaural rendering, and you're hearing that click. It should be right in the center. And this is the object that we're using, and it's panned to the center, as you can see here, the center of the front wall, so that's lighting up right there. Now the first thing I want to do is change this object so that it's panned to the hard left. In the binaural render, the left channel is the full click, but the right channel also has a pretty substantial signal on it. It turns out to be a 12 dB difference between the left and right channels. The signal is being modeled the way we would actually hear it. If the sound is coming from the left, we would still hear it with both ears, just a little louder in our left ear. If we go back into Nuendo and we change the down mix from binaural to stereo, we can see that the signal is entirely coming out on the left channel, which is the way stereo normally works, right? This made me wonder if panning the object to the side would produce less signal on the right channel of the binaural mix. So let's see. Doesn't seem to. Wherever I put it, it's still about 12 dB less on the right. I mentioned that we have three different ways in this project to position a sound in the Atmos room. The first is an object, which we've already seen. I have this object now, I've panned it from the far left to the center, dead center on the front wall. So this is what it sounds like when we play this. And we can see that the meters are evenly divided between the left and the right side because the sound is in the center. We can see that the object, this is the object that's active, and it's panned right in the center of the Atmos room, as you can see with that little flashing light there. What we want to do here is compare how the binaural rendering sounds when the object is placed in the center there versus how it sounds in a stereo track where it's panned to the center. And there are two ways that we're going to do that. The first is with what's called an object bed. It's a stereo track and it's made up of two objects, one panned hard left and one panned hard right. We're going to mute that and unmute that. And now we can see that the stereo object bed, both of these objects light up at the same time. And we can see them lighting up in this position, one on the left and one on the hard right. And the third way is this stereo bed, which is a stereo track that's imported into Atmos as a bed. So when we play that, we see that these objects that are part of the bed are now lighting up. Now, in order to do a fair comparison, we have to make sure that we're using the same binaural settings for all three of these methods. So if we look at the object, the binaural setting is set to near, and the stereo O-bed is also set to near. And if we look at the settings, the binaural render mode for beds, I've set both the left and right channels of the bed to near. According to Dolby documentation, these two methods, the object bed and the bed, should sound the same. But let's just make sure that that's true before we go any further. I'm going to unmute that. I'm going to arm this track and capture that sound on that track. And this time, I'm going to mute the object bed and unmute the bed, and we'll capture that as well. I have these two recordings stacked one above the other, and I've inverted the phase of this track, so when we play this, we'll be doing a null test to see if there's any difference between the two. So here it goes. There's a barely perceptible click at the beginning of the first transient, and I can't explain why that is, but otherwise they're completely canceling each other out, which means that they're identical. So for all intents and purposes, we can assume that these two methods are equivalent. Now we can answer the main question. Let's compare an object panned to the center versus a phantom center in a stereo object bed. I'm surprised at how similar they sound, but to my ears, the object version sounds more focused. So let's do a null test. As a reminder, this is the object version by itself. And now we're going to hear the two nulled against each other. So there's still a very noticeable sound there, which means that the phantom center of a stereo image as an O-bed does not sound the same as an object panned to the center when it comes to the binaural render. We did that test with the object and the O-bed set to near, but let's set the settings to far for both of those and try it again. This is what the object sounds like. And this is what the O-bed version sounds like. And to my ears, I hear a difference there. The object version, again, sounds more focused. The object bed version sounds more diffuse. These are recordings of those two versions here. This channel, as before, has its phase inverted so that when we play them together, we will hear the difference between the two channels. And the fact that there is such a significant signal on that indicates that there's a strong difference between those two versions, which I submit is due to the fact that one is more focused and the other one is more diffuse. I don't mean to sound flip, but this seems like an important thing to understand. I've posted this question on Atmos forums, including Dolby's. Either they didn't completely understand what I was asking, or I failed to comprehend the answer. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please comment below. Hopefully, I'll get some clarity, so watch this space for a follow-up video. Bye for now, and thanks for watching.